Shin Godzilla. So, a week ago, I went to go see this movie in theaters with my father. And when we were on our way back from the theaters, I kind of thought to myself, I should make a video on this. Because not only did I just find the movie to be incredibly interesting, but also I've been wanting to talk about something Godzilla related on this channel for a very long time. So I thought to myself, hey, this is now the perfect excuse to do it. So, yeah, let's get into it. For those of you who don't know what Shin Godzilla even is, it's essentially a Japanese horror kaiju movie released in 2016 that is basically a reboot of Godzilla not as a franchise, but as a character. What do I mean by this? Well, Shin Godzilla is basically like his own unique version, not connected to any other part of the Godzilla franchise. He's not a part of the current -1 universe. He's not a part of the Monsterverse. He is legit just his own independent thing. Which is honestly pretty cool. You don't really see movies, or at least I don't really see movies that act as reboots for a character. I've seen reboots of franchises, but not characters, so it was pretty interesting to actually see this. Especially because I've heard a lot about this movie beforehand. I found out about it 3 years ago, and ever since I've been really wanting to see it. But the thing is, this movie is pretty notorious for being very difficult to actually watch. Like, if you try to find a physical copy, like a DVD copy, you probably won't find one. And if you do, it'll probably cost you a lot of money. And then if you try to look for it on any streaming service, you just won't find it. Of course, now that's been in theaters, maybe that'll change and they'll start adding it to streaming services and, start selling like DVD copies again, but I don't know. In all honesty, it's kind of a miracle that this even replayed in theaters in the first place. A lot of people are theorizing that's because they're making a sequel to this movie. And honestly, I really hope so, because this movie was really good. Why do I find this movie to be really good? Well, in all honesty, I don't actually know. Because I'm not too big of a horror fan, and I don't care about kaiju other than Godzilla. So, I think my best explanation is just, as a Godzilla fan, I'll automatically like a Godzilla movie unless it has an aspect of it that I don't like. In which case, there were no aspects of this movie that I didn't like. Aside from one complaint that I'll talk about later. But, yeah, overall, this movie was just really good. The basic story of this movie, for any of the people who are watching this that want to know, is that, if I remember correctly, people were dumping radioactive waste into the ocean, and a creature, which would become Godzilla, was essentially feasting on it, causing it to mutate. Now, at the beginning of the movie, when Godzilla first shows up, he looks like this. Very, very creepy looking. Crawling, can't even stand up, has googly eyes, gills that spews blood out of them. And I don't even think he has arms. I'm pretty sure he literally grows them after he does stand up. But eventually, he does start to look like more of the Godzilla that we all know, as you kind of saw earlier in the video. So yeah, and eventually, after the first attack, the Japanese government are trying their absolute hardest to prevent Godzilla from showing up again, but they can't really figure anything out other than where the creature came from and how they could maybe stop it. So then when Godzilla does show up again, they send tanks and helicopters to essentially attack it, but it doesn't do anything, like at all. And Godzilla pretty much destroys like most of the tanks, and I'm pretty sure even the helicopters. So this attack goes on for like all the way until it's nighttime, and the US, who are currently helping Japan right now, like Japan and the US are working together, the US, send like bomber plane things at Godzilla. Like they drop bombs on him, leading to my number one favorite scene in the entire movie, the atomic breath scene. This scene is without doubt my favorite because, well, first off, the CGI looks great and the music really adds to just the overall vibe of this, the sadness of it, the hopelessness. As you just saw, he opened his jaw and he starts spewing this like black stuff that then turns into fire. That, like, look at that, destroys most of the city. And then the fire turns into a laser, which destroys even more of the city. And look at how his neck is built. That is such a weird looking neck. Shoots into the sky. And I wanna, just so you're not lost, this is after the Americans dropped the bomb on Godzilla. And they proceed to drop even more bombs, causing Godzilla to shoot lasers out of his back so that he can destroy the bombs before they hit him. Then he continues to use his laser breath once more and destroys even more of the city. This moment was so cool and was so crazy that it's without doubt my favorite scene. And again, the music really adds to it. Like, the music in this movie is just, it's really good. I love it a lot. And actually, later, this is like from later in the movie, Godzilla even uses like his tail. I think it'll show it soon. Hold on. Let's see. Maybe I already showed it. Nope, hold on. Look at that. Even his tail can fire a laser. That's so cool. But yeah. Anyways, after Godzilla uses his atomic breath for the first time, that's kind of it for Japan. Like, the United Nations kind of make an agreement to drop a actual nuke on Japan that would actually kill Godzilla, but of course it would destroy most of Japan too. So Japan essentially tries their hardest to think of a different way to get rid of Godzilla. And they end up coming up with like this drug that can freeze blood cells. And at the very end of the movie, they essentially start destroying, the Japanese government start destroying their own buildings so that it can fall on Godzilla and cause him to topple over and fall down. And then they can, like, put the drug into his mouth. And, the first attempt they do this, Godzilla gets back up, so they make him fall down again. And then the second attempt, they actually do put all of the drug into Godzilla. But at first, it seems like it doesn't work because Godzilla gets back up again. But then he just freezes. Like, straight up, ice just comes out of his body, pretty much, completely freezing him. And then in the final shot of the movie, the camera slowly pans up, like up his tail, revealing that there were like human skeletons coming out. And Godzilla was like this close to evolving again. Because, in case you don't know, that's what Godzilla does in this movie. He evolves, which is why he looks so different from the beginning of the movie to when I showed you the atomic breath scene. It's because he evolved. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get into my one criticism I had with the movie. In Shin Godzilla, our main protagonist is this guy. And also a girl who's, I believe, the daughter of the American president, although I might be incorrect about that. Maybe it was some other American, like, higher person. I'm not sure if it was the president. But she is the daughter of an American dude. And she's, like, the second protagonist who helps this guy in figuring out Godzilla and all that. So, I don't have a problem with them. I think they were pretty good characters. But there was one part about them that I didn't like, and that was when they spoke English. Because in my opinion, the Japanese actors, whenever they spoke English, it was kind of difficult to understand what it was they were saying. And I don't want to come off as rude, so I apologize if I do anyway. But they just did not have like a good American accent. It was so hard to understand what they were saying because of their Japanese accent that I don't know, I wasn't a big fan. I would have preferred if they just spoke Japanese. Which actually leads me into another thing. Usually in dubs for movies, they have audio put over the original footage so that you're not listening to the original language if you don't understand it. You can now listen to the English language, which you would understand. But with this movie, it wasn't like an English audio dub, but rather subtitles that looked like this, where they were yellow subtitles. Now, this isn't like an actual criticism or anything. I'm just kind of pointing it out because I wish they would have had a dubbed audio, but because it took a little while to actually get used to reading subtitles, but eventually I did get used to it and I started to understand what the story was. Even though I did miss out on some dialogue because sometimes the subtitles would be on screen and they would like get off the screen and be replaced by new subtitles, so it was kind of difficult to connect with the characters and understand the story in some parts, but overall, I understood it pretty well, I'd say. So, not really a problem. More so like a my fault thing for just not reading quicker. But, yeah. So my only real criticism is just the fact that whenever the Japanese people spoke English, it was just kind of hard to understand. So that's pretty much it. The only other thing I want to talk about is how surprised I was with Americans being in this movie. Specifically, how many of them showed up. Because, for context, this was the first ever Japanese movie that I've seen in theaters. Which means it's also the first ever non-American movie that I've seen in theaters. So, going into this movie, I wasn't expecting any American people. Aside from the Americans who dropped the bomb, or the bombs on Godzilla, causing him to spew his atomic breath, as you saw earlier. Other than that, I thought it was going to be strictly Japanese people. But nope. Turns out during the movie, there's like this US-Japanese force, like research group that doesn't really do anything. At least not that I can remember. It's not really ever talked about very much. But yeah, I remember it was very interesting just seeing Americans in the movie. And then also, there's like this I think it's the president, actually. It's the father of the Japanese lady who's like the second protagonist in the movie. And yeah, it was very interesting. I wasn't expecting so many Americans to show up in this movie. One thing I actually want to bring up, because that just reminded me, before we end this video, because this will be the last thing I talk about, but when I was younger, I would always be watching movies like Toy Story 3. And if you've seen Toy Story 3, you would know that in one part of the movie, Buzz Lightyear gets like a Spanish mode, where he only speaks Spanish. And at least I think it's Spanish, I'm pretty sure. And when he does speak Spanish, there's English subtitles at the bottom. So when I was younger and I saw that scene, I always wondered to myself, what if, hypothetically, there was a French movie, and, you know, obviously French people who don't understand English would be watching it, and during the movie, one of the characters spoke English. Would there be French subtitles? So that the people the French people could understand what the character was saying. Like, that was always something that I wondered, but I never actually knew if it was a thing. I always believed it to be a thing, but I wasn't quite sure. So with this movie, whenever like any of the characters spoke English, there would be Japanese subtitles for the Japanese people who don't understand English. And I thought that was so cool. Finally seeing that, oh, it was like, whoa. That's kind of interesting. I mean it wasn't anything too special. It was just kind of neat. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Um yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. If you want to go see this movie, I recommend you do. It's super good. And yeah, adios.